evening. Good Tuesday evening. I'm Maggie Vespa. Welcome to The Story. Contact info, per usual, is at the bottom of your screen. You can email the story at kgw.com or use the hashtag #TheStoryKGW. If you're not familiar, your questions and your comments, as you'll see, drive this show. So tonight, let's get started. Now, this week, tonight's big story, this week is obviously a time for joy and for love and celebrations. But for a lot of families, it also marks a somber milestone. This week marks 6 months, if you can believe it, since a record heat wave gripped Oregon for 3 days and killed close to 100 people. In the aftermath of that heat wave, public officials, pressed on how that could possibly happen, vowed to conduct a full, detailed analysis of their response to the heat wave, and if anything needed changing or fixing, they would change it, and they would fix it. It was a noble goal. So tonight, half a year later, we wanted to know how many of those in-depth analyses that we were promised have actually come to fruition. In other words, who's learning from the heat wave?
In the aftermath of June's record-setting heat wave, the stories poured out.
I wasn't going out in that weather. We didn't go out at all.
It felt very claustrophobic. It was hard to breathe.
We spent, my neighbors and I, 2 hours watching the police, coroner, and other state officials prepare this man's body.
Close to 100 Oregonians died. Many were older, in poor health. Several people died in public housing and in homes without air conditioning. Common threads pieced together after journalists pressed the state for the names of the dead. Horrified, public officials made a promise.
Well, I think we're looking now, doing an after-hours report to study what we have done.
There was a lot to study. Should officials have sent emergency alerts about the heat wave, sounding alarms on cell phones? Were there enough transportation options to get the poor and disabled to cooling centers? And how, of all things, did no one think to keep 211 open as the heat stretched into the weekend? Officials had urged the public to call that very hotline for info on cooling resources, not realizing it only operated Monday through Friday. Stranded callers later told KGW.
There was no way to get a human on the line, or no way I could find, and there was no information about the heat wave at all.
Officials immediately worked with 211. That service now operates 24/7. As for the rest, they said analyses would follow. Fast forward 6 months. With the heat-fueled mass casualty event behind us, KGW started asking who's doing that work.
I'm Thomas Stenson.
Last week, we got a tip.
I'm the Deputy Legal Director at Disability Rights Oregon.
Disability Rights Oregon, a local nonprofit, has been pressing the state further, demanding not just the names of the dead, but medical examiner reports. Plus,
I spent a lot of time going over social media, going over other court documents that may help me understand what's going on in somebody's life.
Tom Stenson's key question, how many of those who died had disabilities? And how many of them could have lived if officials had taken their specific needs into account?
As often happens with disaster planning, the plan's aimed at people who are easy to reach, not at the people who need to be reached. The people who have computers and good internet access and smartphones, they're likely to also have the resources to, get themselves through a heat wave. The people who are most likely to be affected are actually somewhat hard to reach, and we need to understand who's actually dying in these heat waves.
Case in point, he says, Ashlyn Maddox.
Don't worry, I'll always be there for you, Ash. Through the good times and the bad times. I'm here. Your mama's here.
KGW broke the story of Maddox's death back in August. Last month, her family asked to meet us at her grave, marking what would have been her 37th birthday. Maddox died during the June heat wave. Neighbors found her on a hot sidewalk outside her adult foster care home in Southeast Portland. A medical transport driver had dropped Maddox off, but drove away before she went inside. Surveillance video later showed Maddox wandering her neighborhood in the dangerous heat before neighbors found her collapsed. The medical transport company Ride to Care maintains that driver followed protocol.
It's like an accident that didn't necessarily have to happen.
The family says Maddox, who had suffered multiple strokes, needed extra help that day.
It was a tragedy and never should have occurred.
It's because of stories like hers that Stenson is bent on compiling the data and proving government officials need to tailor emergency plans to those who need the most help. He believes no one else is looking at the deadly heat wave through the same lens.
Not only is there not somebody doing that work, I had to fight pretty hard to get these records. The official position of all of the agencies involved was that there weren't people with this. I had to go and prove that there were people with disabilities involved. Not only were they not going to look at it, but it was my job to go and show that people with disabilities were dying in order to get the records in the first place.
So Stenson told us he does not have findings to release just yet. He says the state is turning over those medical examiner reports slowly. He had just gotten a few more last week when we spoke. And that last point that he made kind of really struck us. We wondered, is no one else indeed looking at the heat wave in the same context, or at least with this much detail? So last week, our team reached out to the city of Portland, including the mayor and every sitting city commissioner, along with Portland's Bureau of Emergency Communications. We also reached out to Multnomah County, Metro, and the Oregon Health Authority. Now, both the city and the county got back to us by deadline, and they sent detailed responses, first pointing out all the things their agencies did do to keep people safe, like sending out alerts through social media and through us, the media. They also opened 24/7 cooling centers, and they sent volunteers to check on the homeless. They did a lot. But both agencies also said, yes, they are indeed analyzing what else they could have done. Multnomah County, home to the majority of the deaths, is working on finalizing its full report now, but they released a preliminary study in August. It's 25 pages long. We'll be posting that on our website. But to sum up, both agencies say they have already made changes in the interim. Among them, the city is now sending out emergency alerts tied to heat waves and sending them earlier and with more methods like robocalls and text alerts. They're using stronger language like heat kills and check on others. The city also passed a sweeping new plan to get AC units into low-income residents' homes, 15,000 homes over the next 5 years, to be specific. Now, the county again helped 211 go 24/7, and officials say they're working on a new deal to formalize that partnership. They're also adding a full-time position, a staff member dedicated to the effects of climate change on community members. And about that last item, a spokesperson wrote via email, this matters because heat waves and other climate emergencies won't be slow moving. They will be a chaotic, rapidly changing emergencies where to be successful, we must have existing relationships with every category of people who are vulnerable. We want to turn now to a tweet that caught our team's eye yesterday. And mind you, it caught a lot of eyes. It's a big announcement from the University of Oregon. They wrote, quote, the UO will be requiring COVID-19 booster shots. Students, faculty, and staff should get their booster as soon as they are eligible. The school went on to say in subsequent tweets they'll release details on deadlines and requirements on uploading your vaccine status soon. So clearly there's a lot to unpack with all of this. A major public university is requiring not just vaccines, but boosters. A lot of you had questions. A lot of you had thoughts. No surprise there. We're going to start digging into those questions and thoughts over the next couple of days. But we do want to start with one question in particular. What are other colleges and universities doing? Christine Pitawanich looked into that for us. And so, Christine, what did you find?
Maggie, I contacted a number of colleges and universities, and so far the University of Oregon appears to be the only institution that is coming out and saying, hey, we're going to be requiring booster shots. But other universities like Portland State University or down south, Southern Oregon University, they don't have booster requirements as of yet, but say they're closely watching what's going on with the variant and closely listening to what health officials are saying. And while Oregon State University, for instance, hasn't made an official decision yet, a spokesperson tells me it is likely that it also might require a booster shot. They'll be evaluating information from health experts over the next week or so.
and we'll make judgments based upon the guidelines and the guidance provided by science and by health authorities.
And the school is encouraging students and employees to get a booster shot before holiday gatherings and, of course, before they come back on campus January 3rd.
Gotcha. Let's turn, in light of this, then, to one of those viewer questions that we've got. And we've gotten this one a lot already. And then with this announcement, it's clearly all the more pertinent. Tom asked us, what is the current definition of fully vaccinated? Does it require a booster shot? Tom, thank you so much. And Christine, can you lend any clarity to that?
Well, the CDC still considers people fully vaccinated 2 weeks after their second dose of a 2-dose vaccine series like Pfizer or Moderna, and also 2 weeks after a single dose of, say, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. But that could change.
I think we're going to see a change in definition to what fully vaccinated means very soon. It's essentially going to mean 3 doses of an mRNA vaccine.
So I think the old adage applies here. The only constant is change, right? Applicable in life and apparently a pandemic. Maggie?
Yeah, definitely a valuable lesson and seemingly universally applicable. So, Christine, thank you so much for the clarity. Great reporting.
It's quite the week to refer to someone as
the Joe Manchin of Oregon politics.
And you guess who we're talking about? I'll give you a hint. She's the top fundraiser in the race for Oregon's next governor. Plus, we talk a lot about the tiny house villages that cities can't seem to open. Tonight, a refreshing change.
Then when they told us, Jamie told us, hey, you know, you're getting tiny homes, we're like, say what?
When the story continues.
Welcome back. Keep sending in those questions and comments to thestory@kgw.com or use that hashtag #TheStoryKGW on Twitter. Let's talk now about the Oregon governor's race. And yes, in case you're keeping track, there are still more than 24 people running. Oh, that graphic is overwhelming. Some you probably heard of and some you probably haven't. But Pat sent us this email and he wrote, please give equal time to interviewing all the candidates running for governor as you did the man from Yamhill. And we assume he means former New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristof, who we talked to a few months ago. And since then, we have also talked to State Treasurer Tobias Reed. Pat went on to say, we especially want to see an interview with Betsy Johnson. Well, Pat, we appreciate you writing in. We do want to know, we have reached out to Betsy Johnson's campaign multiple times, and we haven't heard back. We will keep trying, though. And Betsy, if you're listening, please write us back. We'd love to talk to you. In the meantime, she recently put out this video announcing she's stepping down as state senator to focus on running for governor.
Oregon is a huge state, and I have a lot of work to do to bring us all together. Therefore, effective December the 15th, I am resigning from the Oregon State Senate. My reason is simple. Northwest Oregon deserves a full-time state senator, and running for governor is a full-time job.
There you go. So now it's worth noting Johnson is running as an unaffiliated candidate, even though she was a Democrat in the Senate. And that means she will not be a part of any party's primary in May. So basically right now she's playing the long game and trying to get support for the general election. And so far, she is winning the financial race. She's raised more than $2 million at this point for her campaign, more than any other candidate in the race. And that includes $10,000 from Newt Bueller's PAC. Remember him? He ran for governor as a Republican against Kate Brown in 2018. So in light of all the money that Johnson is raising, we asked KGW political analyst Len Bergstein if he thinks she's the front runner. His answer? No. Since she's not running, he says, either as a Democrat or a Republican. But he still thinks she can get a lot of support.
It kind of depends on how the voters show up next year and what the voter narrative is. If the voter narrative is that they're sick and tired of everything that has to do with government and politics in Oregon right now, then that really opens it up for an outsider, somebody who hasn't been kind of a normal politician. And so Betsy Johnson's narrative, at least at the beginning, will have to be capturing that she is the uniquely kind of an unusual character, that she's not wedded to the past, even though she has 20 years of running the Ways and Means Committee. So there'll be an interesting way in which she kind of like fits into that narrative. The second narrative is really the kind of Goldilocks narrative, and that is, gee whiz, the Democrats are likely to kind of select a far left candidate. The Republicans are likely to nominate a far right candidate, and all of a sudden the middle opens up to Goldilocks, to someone to run down the middle, and that Betsy Johnson hopes that she can kind of fill that space, and it becomes a mathematics question. If you're in a three-person race, you don't have to quite get the same number of votes.
So here's one of those Goldilocks examples. Remember the Republican walkout over cap and trade in 2019? And we know they're all blending together. There have been a lot of walkouts, but at this point it's hard to keep track. But even still, the reason Republicans came back to Salem that time is because a few moderate Democrats, including Betsy Johnson, decided not to vote for cap and trade after all, and they effectively killed that bill. So you could call her the Goldilocks choice, or, as Bergstein also put it,
she has been the Joe Manchin of Oregon politics. She's been the person who, when it was 16-14 in the Senate, had a very commanding vote on things. She's been the head of the Ways and Means Committee and kept certain budget items from moving forward. She's been against some issues that are progressive, part of what the Oregon progressive tradition is. On the other hand, she's had a very strong message about economy and rural economies.
All right, so the primaries, which again Betsy Johnson will not be a part of, are happening on May 17th. The general election will be on November 8th, 2022. Let's shift gears again now to one of our favorite topics, or at least the ones that we feel like it's worth talking about the most: safe rest villages to house people living on the streets. We've talked a lot on this show about Portland's plans to open 6 villages by the end of the year and how those plans keep getting pushed back. Last we heard, they're now aiming for sometime in 2022. But in the meantime, Vancouver is way ahead of Portland. That city's first safe stay community is opening on Thursday. And Mike Benner got a look inside.
This is a big deal. It's great. We're so excited.
Giddy best describes how Michael Iverson is feeling on this Tuesday before Christmas. In a matter of days, the 38-year-old will have a roof over his head for the first time in years.
Then when they told us, Jamie told us, hey, you know, you're getting tiny homes, we're like, say what?
Iverson and his girlfriend will be 2 of the first people to move into Vancouver's Safe Stay community, an assortment of 20 tiny homes near Northeast 112th Avenue and State Route 500 will provide up to 40 people in the houseless community a safe place to sleep.
It's nice though, still power, heat and everything, and it's been nice. We've been cold and stuff.
Beyond thrilled.
Jamie Spinelli is the homeless response coordinator for the city of Vancouver. She managed to turn a city property that looked like this into this in less than a year.
What's hugely important is life and death for some people.
Spinelli says the people who live here will get a tiny home with 2 beds and heat, all protected by a lock, not to mention access to outreach workers and community-based service providers.
The goal here is to move people in, get them stabilized and onto permanent housing and employment as quickly as possible. But we don't also want to rush people out before they're ready to do so.
Can't wait.
Much appreciated by Michael Iverson, who recently secured a job and now a place to call home.
Christmas tree, that is so sweet. And to be coming back up from being down so low, it's awesome.
Mike Benner for KGW News.
Congrats to Michael. That's fantastic. And by the way, the city of Vancouver officials from there say they don't plan for this to be a one and done kind of thing. They're hoping to have several more safe stay communities up and running by the summer. We'll keep you posted on that progress, as well as the city of Portland's. In the meantime, here on The Story, we're going to read some of your responses to one of our most popular stories of the last week. It was about a little boy who was able to get more time with his family thanks to blood donations. That story when we come back. Welcome back. Let's dig into your viewer comments now, because a lot of you had really strong and frankly really lovely reactions to one of our big stories from last week. And first, a quick recap. Laurel Porter last week told the story of Declan the dinosaur, a little boy from Vancouver who loved dinosaurs and the Jurassic Park movies. He was diagnosed with leukemia, but blood donations kept him alive for months longer than doctors expected, long enough to see Jurassic World in theaters. This after the movie star Chris Pratt found out about Declan's battle and reached out in support.
You are in my prayers and my thoughts, and I love you. And I hope to see you later, kids.
At the end of the day, Declan lived the most fulfilled life that a 6-year-old could ever dream of, and he got to see his movie.
So cool. So that full story is up now at kgw.com. Susan saw it and emailed us. I had been giving blood at the Red Cross for a while. They had a form asking if you would like to donate platelets. I filled it out as yes, not knowing at that time the meaning. I'm glad my few hours a week helps so many people like Declan the dinosaur. Lisa wrote, watching the piece about blood donations, so nice to see something other than violence or homelessness. And Lisa, we totally get it and we agree. We focus on those issues for obvious reasons, but we do love to change it up. And this story was beyond worth it. Thank you. Finally, Mike wrote, sometimes you air a story that just tears at your heart. Thank you. I haven't given blood in a while, he said, but I will be soon. Mike, that's awesome. Good for you. And that was truly the point of that story because, again, Declan's mom, Lauren, as you might have seen in the story, now honors the memory of her little boy by working for the agency that helped him, Blood Works Northwest. She said it was like coming home. And you can sign up for appointments to donate blood on their website. They have locations across the state of Washington, including in Clark County. A link to that page is in our story at kgw.com right now. And we'll also throw out, by the way, the Red Cross has regular blood drives. Just go to redcross.org and click on Give Blood. Then you can type in your zip code. And remember, there is a nationwide emergency blood shortage. Giving blood is so easy, and it's the very thing that kept Declan alive long enough to live out his dinosaur dreams. Thanks again for writing in. We love reading your emails, especially tied to stories like that. Keep sending in those questions and comments to the story at kgw.com. We're going to finish the show next. We've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and I'm honestly so proud of our viewers. Like, what on earth is that? Look at that. Time now for some weird holiday decor. This one's from Carolyn. She wrote, my husband was a wood carver. He did Frankenstein years ago, and normally we have him out for Halloween. This year, my husband asked if we could leave him out, so I put some ribbon on him and gave him some candles. He is on a shelf among the carved Santas and snowmen. I love how like the candles are around him and like it looks a little religious, but he's just there like on display, looking so noble. I just love it. Thank you so much for sending that in. Keep sending in your weird and creepy holiday decor to the story at kgw.com. We started this off just by saying like every family's got that item. Every family has that one weird thing that you have to explain to guests, and you're like, I'm sorry it's scary. Happy holidays. So thank you all for confirming what we thought to be true. That does it for the story. The news at 6:30 with Brittany Falkers is coming up next.
This is KGW.